And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Monastery, the open bar of the internet, the world's greatest shit show, and the place where we, the good brothers and sisters of this most holy of temples, seek enlightenment through the drunkest, craziest, and most batshit ways possible. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me, I have a newcomer into the temple. Or not so much a newcomer, what the hell am I saying? I got thrown off by the massive follows before we started. I hit my follow goal. Returning to this holy of temples. Previously here for Inheritors, and now back in for the second edition of his sci-fi miniatures game, Feet First into Hell. The one and only LR Knight, not to be confused with LA Knight. How you doing today, man?
Good. Congratulations on the follow goal.
Thank you. Yeah, it just kind of snuck up on me. So
that's awesome.
I will admit, for this one, for the second edition, which I will be posting a link to the Kickstarter for on on YouTube and one on Twitch. Let me get that for you. Let me get that for the people watching on Twitch. I probably should have pinned that before I started, but things happened. So, first off, congrats on getting that funded pretty damn quick.
Yeah, thank you. I was surprised. I mean, I know it's a little bit of a strange thing, and the first one was strange too. But yeah, it was fully funded within, I think, 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It was quick.
Yeah, you were asking for 300 as part of your goal. At the time we're doing this, it is at 2,400 with 16 days to go.
Hell yeah! All right. I learned with Inheritors not to look at it very often. It winds me up too much. So I look at it when I get the Kickstarter email in the morning and in the evening, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Feet First into Hell is most certainly a skirmish war game, and since we're dealing with a skirmish style approach, what was your introduction to that style of wargaming for the first time?
I want to say it was Kill Team, but I don't think that's accurate. There's another smaller, shorter superhero skirmish game that I remember playing and stuck with me. I definitely played HeroClix. But no, it was different. It was older from when I was a teenager. It was something like that. But like that stuck with me. The idea of like your character's your mini, right? And then that you bring that into battle, and you know the stats. You roughly know what that character is going to do, but you still got some options. I definitely remember playing HeroClix because I collected a bunch of them. My dad collected a bunch of them. I got the benefit of him being into it. But later on, it was a lot of D&D and then a lot of Kill Team because we got kind of sick of the 5e rules and we wanted something we could just slam together a game and play. But it turns out even when you're fluent in Kill Team, you can't really slam together a game and play.
Yeah. I'm curious if Space Hulk was ever brought up.
No, I did have the game, like the video game, but I did not have the box set. I didn't learn about that until a lot later.
If I wanted to be pedantic, I'd ask which video game because there's been like 4 Space Hulk games over the years.
Yeah, well, when we got our iPads, the very first iPads years ago, that was like one of the big releases for the iPad was a Space Hulk game, and that was the one that we played. They updated it and then they stopped supporting it, and now you can't download it anymore, which is great.
That sounds about right. It's the reason I'm still salty regarding Infinity Blade, which is one of the best mobile.
Oh man, I was just talking about that the other day with somebody. Brandon Sanderson wrote the novella. We were talking about how Sanderson can write short books, and that was my example. What a throwback!
He also wrote a novella when he was supposed to be on vacation. Along with 3 short stories. It was supposed to be pencils down, but you know how it is with that kind of creative mindset. You can't turn that off.
Right. Yeah. But, no. That's where Feet First came from, is the inability to turn it off. It's got a kind of a weird inception story.
Yeah. And speaking of that, what would you say were some of the Appendix N entries for Feet First into Hell in terms of the style of science fiction it's going for?
Anybody who looks at it's going to know that it's inspired by Halo. That's been a huge part of my life since I was old enough to buy my first Xbox. But also Mass Effect, the Warhammer. It's going to be difficult to get away from a Fallen universe with Warhammer, but there's a little bit of Foundation in there too. There's a little bit anything with megastructures. So if you like your Larry Niven, your Arthur C. Clarke, like that's in the background lore. But the general aesthetic that I've taken from has been a combination of like Mass Effect, Halo, Helldivers. Although I know it seems ridiculous on the face of it, but I'm an Xbox guy, so I had no idea what Helldivers was when we launched the first edition. It was my community that pointed it out to me, and we're like, "Oh my god, this is a good time." But it really started with the idea of the paratroopers, and then rather than draw as many games do from like the World War One aesthetic or the modern combat aesthetic, I really kind of leaned into the paratroopers from World War II, 101st Airborne, and in particular Jake McNasty's Dirty Dozen. I read a lot about them. They were really interesting. So the whole like character of the drop corps is kind of drawn from the Pathfinders.
Yeah. Which is it's funny you bring up McNasty, given some of the stories about him, like the whole thing. You're probably familiar with the butter incident, aren't you?
I don't know about the butter incident, but like one of the ones that always gets me is the fish in the pants.
Yeah, because McNasty was the poster boy of an anti-hero in the sense that he could get the job done, but he was kind of an asshole.
What a perfect name, McNasty, for that guy. You know, but that's I read a book about the Dirty Dozen that was an oral history, primarily given by him, but not entirely, and it was mind blowing. And so I ended up reading like everything I could get my hands on about that unit, and then more about the 101st.
Yeah, but he was when he was still a grunt, he was insubordinate about not being able to get butter for his deal in the mess hall. He ends up going through a course, completely aces it, is told that he ended up setting a company record, and his immediate response was, "If you thought I was good with that, you should see how I am when I get some butter." And internally there were two thoughts. One was, this guy's insubordinate, we need to get him out of the military. On the other was, this is exactly the kind of person we want in these behind enemy lines kind of operations.
Yes, yeah, that is your Pathfinder material.
Mm-hmm. Although I think he said he had a near panic attack when he was told he was going to be put into Pathfinder school at first, because Pathfinder had a very high attrition rate.
Yes, it did.
And he was thinking, they're trying to kill me. What sold him on it was the fact that there were going to be a bunch of college students at the school in the part of France where he was going to be training. So you can put two and two together there.
He's an interesting guy. His unit was particularly inspiring. There are others.
Mm-hmm.
I read a bunch about them when I was putting together the background lore and trying to figure out what the drop corps was, because in the first edition, I put it up, and I put it up kind of out of the blue. I had the mechanics worked out, but I didn't really know about how to lay out a book. We were having fun with the game system with my friends. We had basically replaced Kill Team with that system on our game nights, and we were having a blast with it. And so I was drinking, and I was like, you know what, to hell with this. And I've got a couple other friends that are game designers and stuff like that, and they were all like circling the idea of doing Kickstarters, but nobody wanted to be the one to pull the trigger first and have it blow up in their face.
Mm-hmm.
So my literal thought was, to hell with this, and I slammed it together, and that's why the asking price was so low, because I wasn't, and still am not, very confident that people are going to buy into the idea. But so I had to learn a whole bunch about it. But the drop corps in the first edition doesn't really have a lot of personality, and that was a big part of second edition, is like building out the background.
Yeah, there's most definitely that. And I'm guessing when it comes to setting up the play style, we're drawing upon Halo, we're drawing upon Mass Effect. Both of those games have a combat style that is very aggressive.
Yes.
I'm not going to be saying anything controversial when I say that the worst parts of Halo were the parts where you're playing defense against waves. Nobody likes the library for that reason. And
that's why I don't like Halo 4. You hit button and wait for waves to end.
Yeah. I have a complicated relationship with Halo 4, but the reason it is what it was is because they brought a bunch of people from a bunch of different studios and then gave them a blank check. Like you had some people from Retro, you had some people from 2 of the Call of Duty studios, you had some people from both of the SOCOM studios, the PS2 era and the PS3 era SOCOM, and it's a case of all these different cooks in the kitchen and not everything meshed.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. So I went back to a more aggressive play style. That was a huge part of it, is award aggressive play style and thoughtful or risky character placement.
Yeah. And I'm guessing the way you handle that aggressive playstyle is through the posture system.
That's the new addition to it. Yeah, that was a huge back and forth with my buddies. Is it adding something meaningful? But particularly in campaign play, the posture system, it just gives you a little bit more of an advantage. You could play without it. We played without it for years, but we were just looking for another layer of brief but tactical crunchiness to add in. And so when you combine the posture system with the shields, it makes your tactical decisions, your placement, and your play style a little bit more impactful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And obviously the actual shooting part is D6 based, though since this is a skirmish game, I think it's fair to say you're not going to be throwing the dozens upon dozens of D6s that you might in a full-scale war game.
No, we, but I say we, but I hated doing that in Warhammer.
Mm-hmm. So you probably really hated orc players.
One of my brothers is an orc player. Yes, there's a lot of DACA.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean with a really busy gun, you might be throwing like 5d6s, maybe, but generally it's two is pretty common. Sometimes 3. You get the right attachments or modifications, you can get it up to 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can get that. And when it comes to deployment, obviously the big thing is you are the equivalent of Hell Jumper, the equivalent of the ODST in Halo, or the Helldivers in Helldivers, and a big part of that is jumping right into the fray instead of having some established base that you're coming out of.
Yep.
So within a skirmish war game, how do you replicate that feel of dropping straight into the battlefield?
In the first edition, we divided the board up into quadrants with a 5th pseudo quadrant in the center, mm-hmm. and you'd roll a d6 at the beginning of the game, and that would determine your quadrant. So you could, and we just allowed this to happen, you could roll the same quadrant as your opponent, and you would just drop on top of each other, it's funny, but when you are playing more competitively or you're trying to be more tactical, it can be frustrating. Mm-hmm. So one of the things we started experimenting with was opening that up and giving the player a chance to re-roll drop zones if they wanted to do that. But that just opened a can of worms, because the conversation became more about like, well, what if as the game changes, I want to change my drop pattern? And what if I want to be landing on one edge of the board? It's advantageous for this game type, or I have a really belligerent, really fast acting team. Oops. Mm-hmm. So we started talking about like, how could we deploy differently? And then we looked into Kill Team, we looked into Stargrave, we looked into a couple of other games, and looked at how they were doing deployment, and it just felt very static. Mm-hmm. So I came up with these deployment patterns. Basically, pull like a tactical card at the beginning of the round or at the beginning of the game, depending on the game mode you're playing. It's like, this is how we're falling. Mm-hmm. And you can look at your team, your team constitution. Maybe I have a lot of guys, and I'm going to pepper the board kind of evenly. Maybe I have a really small set of assassins, and I want to make sure I'm falling near my enemy. Mm-hmm. Those options are there now.
Yeah. Yeah. And to that end, since we're drawing upon as the material that was mentioned, that we've mentioned before, one thing I am curious about is what would be the equivalent setup of certain units or certain styles? Like, say, what kind of unit would be the rough equivalent of say a Spartan? What sort of unit would be the rough equivalent of a ODST?
So the way that we broke down the units, it changed very slightly from one to second E. So in the original one, there were elite units that just had beefier stats. Those have been offloaded to Spectres, special tactics and reconnaissance units. Those would be like your Spartan 2s.
Yep.
So they've got their specialties, they're hyper advanced. Or if you want Spectres from Mass Effect, although I think it means something different. And your ODSTs, they might be like your officer unit, it could be your recruit unit. And it really becomes a matter of how do you want to equip them. So if you want to have a recruit like a Spartan 4 who's not nearly as experienced as a 3 or a 2, we're not Spartan 5s yet, are we?
No.
Give them time; they'll get there. You'd take a recruit, and you might give it like a 1 Worskin and Aegis Mark 1. So that makes them hardier, but the real core stats are in that type of unit. And then there's a lot of ways that you can modify. So if you want to have like Linda, who's a sniper from Halo, you might take a Spectre and roll a Pathfinder. Or if you want to take the Master Chief, you might make a Commando. If you want to make an ODST like Buck, or actually Buck's probably a bad example. What's his name? The Dutch. From ODST, you can actually take one of the pre-made units and grab one of the ones that we made for the ODSTs, right? Not the ODSTs, the Drop Corps right in the back. The demolition guys. So there's a couple different ways you can build units. You can think about character that you want to drive, like the theme, how do they play. You could look at it statistically, or if you want roles, like what position does this dude fill on the unit, then you could just grab one of the pre-made characters.
Oh yeah, and obviously with a lot of war games, whether it be skirmish or full scale, there's always those two primary pillars of play: the single one-off kinds of play, you're doing just one battle and that's it, and the campaign play, which is you're doing multiple battles at once, not at once, but in succession. And a bit more customization is apropos in those situations. Now, considering that everything revolves around points, what would you say is the baseline point budget for an army within Feed First into Hell?
So we played with this a bunch, and we played with different numbers of players. We played solo, and the thing that we kept coming back to is it felt like anything more than 100 points, it got more than skirmishy. It got a little bit too big. But when you run down below like 75, down below 70 points, it gets pretty constricted because the units can be very lethal, like real quickly. So you want to have enough flexibility to put enough boots on the ground in this case, that you've got that flexibility even after a bad round, but not so much that you're bogging the game down. So we played and balance. We shifted some of the unit values a little bit. We kind of came out around 100, and that didn't really change at all between first and second edition. It's been 100 for your baseline team budget. That's true going into a campaign, because there are some of the campaign books that are available. But even in just your one-off skirmish play, that's usually enough to field like 6 to 8 units that are decently equipped, or like 14 guys that you send in with nothing, which you could do. You could just flood their guns if you want, but usually 100 points will get you 7, 8 well-equipped units, which is enough to play quickly and not lose track of what's going on, but also not have like super-powered units that just drag the game down.
Yeah, I could certainly see that, and I see with some of the example skirmishes, the point budget is around 100. Yeah,
once in a while we changed it. There are some where like we want the attacker to be really aggressive, so we gave them more points to put the defender kind of on the back foot. And then on the flip side, there are some games where, where an attacker and a defender is specified, where the defender gets more because the attacker should be battling uphill. So it does vary a little bit. But generally, where we do that, there's some sort of mitigating factor. Like one of them is an escort, which was inspired by the movie Fury, and you have to escort a tank across the battlefield. And the defenders do have a higher point budget, but the attackers have a tank, so it makes up for the difference.
Yeah, and given the source material, like I have a feeling that something you wanted to support is that notion of even though you have a very powerful team, you are outnumbered.
Yes. Yeah, especially in campaign play, you tend to get outnumbered pretty quickly. I mean, that's the idea, is you're paratroopers dropping onto some foreign world to accomplish a mission of like high importance, but not a lot of support. So it makes sense. It's you and your guns against the world, kind of.
Yeah. And I'm guessing that's part of the reason why the foe side has some sort of giant fuck off unit, like the Titans.
Oh yeah.
Which
the swarms.
Which I suppose the Swarmer Titan would be the equivalent of. Are you familiar with the meme of Distraction Carnifex?
No, but I can guess what that would be. Yeah, I mean it's a pressure on the battlefield. It exists basically to punish the team.
Yeah, in some cases it's meant to be the giant distraction, while the rest of the unit works around the enemy. That's one of those running memes, along with tar pits.
Okay.
A tar pit is you're getting a bunch of low cost, cheap enemies and just wasting your opponent's time, just trying to chew through them.
That's kind of how the swarm operates. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of swarm factions are going to operate in that approach. But since this is a game that is also supporting solo play, I'm curious how you'd handle the, for lack of a better term, AI within solo play.
So it's not different than in group play. So it's really is made for solo and group players. I have little kids. I don't always have time to get together with my buddies and play. But when we were building this, and we built Feet First in parallel to Inheritors. So there's a lot of Feet First Edition infected Inheritors, and a lot of Inheritors infected Feet First Second Edition. But when it comes to the enemy AI, that system is largely unchanged between the two games. The idea is you don't want to beat yourself. I mean, if you ever played Kill Team against yourself, you're not in for a very exciting evening.
Oh yeah.
Because the enemies they're gonna do kind of their thing. But what we did is we boiled this down to the same conceptual structure that we build the games around, is verbs. Like, what are the verbs that you want the players to do? And when we were hashing out this system, we boiled down the enemy AI to like, what are the verbs or the states that the enemy needs to go through to figure this out, and keep it in the player's hands, but provide a kind of universal direction. So it's boiled down to 4 precepts or 4 rules: blood, speed, steel, mud. And largely what that means is an enemy that was attacked recently, that's the one you should select and activate first. It was, it bled. And then you're dealing with what are the enemies that can attack you fastest. So bullets are faster than fists, right? So you would select ones that can move into range or are and then make a ranged attack. You work your way through those, and then you deal with the ones that are steel. So knives out next. You pile in, select move into range to fight, or fight if they're already in range, and then finally is just mud, cover ground. So if you can't get your enemies into range, you just move them closer. And those couple of directions allow a solo player to step back and go like, what makes sense here? And it gives you a framework and a little bit of rails that you can override if it's cool. But it gives you just enough of rails that you don't feel like you're beating yourself, because the game is saying, no, here's how they should behave. And then it's always up to the player at the end of the day.
Oh,
But when you're doing group play and it's not your turn, you're not the active player, you're following the same rules. So anybody who learns to play solo can play in a group, and anybody who learns to play group can play solo.
mm-hmm. Which certainly makes sense. And I believe that you already have a couple expansions for first edition which can carry over into second, that being Operation Phoenix and Dark Ice. Would it be...
And one more in Rain Hell. There were 3, yeah.
My bad.
No, you're good.
But from what I understand, it wouldn't take too much difficulty to transfer those into second edition.
It should be fully backwards compatible. Once in a while, you might find that there are, like, the stats on a creature are slightly different from second edition, but if you're playing with the second edition rules, I would just... All of the units that are in those books are here in the second edition book.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just use this new second edition field manual as your reference for the characters and rules, and then follow the adventure notes out of the second one. And honestly, we did that because we started playing with the Spectres, the new units, and the hardpoint attachments and all that. We started doing it while we were playtesting Operation Phoenix, because we've been playing with the same characters for so long that my friends were like, can we get powers? You know, can we make these guys into badasses? And that was where the idea for the Spectres came from. So it's been baked into the system. It just wanted to wait to give everything enough time to really fully cook.
Yeah. And obviously with these Spectres, you have them in 3 levels. You know, with each level giving a higher point cost, but then also a tactical upgrade.
Yep.
I'd like to do a bit of a parallel. In terms of like power scale, what would be the equivalent in Halo or Mass Effect of the 3 Spectre levels?
I'm gonna be mean. Level 1 would be a Spartan 4, Sarah Palmer in particular, and 2 would be Kurt, your Spartan 3s, and your level 3 Spectre with all 3 tactical upgrades would be a 2.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with like a real specialist, a master of that craft. By the time you get to level 3, they're crazy on the battlefield, because you know, when in first edition, most of the units largely play in the same structure. You know, to draw another parallel, and Astartes is kind of an Astartes. But when you introduce these tactical powers, you can start to chain things together in some really, really dynamic ways, and it ends up being a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. I can see that, and it's funny you bring up those 3, since you know the Spartan 4s, the advantage was you could just convert anybody into a Spartan 4.
Yeah.
Spartan 3s are Halo's equivalent of the Cursed Founding, because they were made to be basically expendable.
Yep.
I guess another way to put it is an attempt to make Spartan 2s on the cheap.
And, mass production.
Mm-hmm. And, well, one of the rules of combat is your weapon was made by the lowest bidder, and you try and make a highly specialized weapon like a Spartan on the cheap, you get exactly what you pay for. Obviously the Spartan 2s was where the long original process was perfected. It's just that for as beneficial as Spartan 2s were, you had them being unlucky in some cases due to bad command, but you also had the fact that it was a long and expensive process just to make one of them.
Right. And that's the general thought process here, is like you're adding 10 points to get that level 3 Spectre. It's a hefty system to keep them aggressive or defensive, and then also the deployment system. You can really tailor how your team operates. You know, so if you want to, Halo 5 has its ups and downs, mostly downs, but that initial cutscene with like the Spartan 4s bursting out of the ship and then running down the mountain, that kind of energy is what you can roll out with the right Spectre team in aggressive mode with the right deployment pattern. You can get some really explosive gameplay with just a few units. You know, and on the flip side, you could dig your heels in, and you could have like a real shootout, Helldiver style at the end, with a bunch of incompetent boobs and one desperate unit carrying the team. You could do also that with the Spectre system. It just deepens what's there for players. And we spent a lot of time. We had a lot of fun coming up with all of the different powers. There's 8 of them, 8 different Spectre types.
Mm-hmm.
Each one has 6 powers. It's a lot of powers, and there's no overlap.
Yeah, I mean, you've got armor, which is basically the tanker for people who wanted to play who love playing the heavy in Team Fortress 2.
Yep.
Yeah,
And that one's built all around one of my playtesters. Yeah. This is his character. These are his powers.
Yeah, I guess if I was to keep the 2 forward comparison, the Breacher isn't far moved from like a Demo Man.
Devil Man. I'm not familiar with Devil Man.
Demo Man was was the one-eyed Scottish Cyclops in Team Fortress 2.
Oh, I heard Devil is in like Diablo. My bad. Okay, I got you. Yeah, or actually, because this is the Breacher's one of the ones that I play test a lot. Is the Vanguard from Mass Effect. Mm-hmm. I love that play style.
Oh yeah,
it's very in your face.
Mm-hmm. Hence, giving them a shotgun as well as an axe.
I love it. The Breacher axe is one of their community players' ideas. We came into the forum with this YouTube video of a guy that made a ballistic axe, and we were like, we have to adopt this now. Mm-hmm. So that's straight up community idea.
Yeah, and I know that there's the exploding hammers in that one festival in Mexico, and then somebody decided to make a exploding hammer that uses a squib.
Spectacular.
Yeah, it's the San Juanito Festival in San Juan de la Vega.
Okay.
But would it be fair to say then that the Commando is kind of the jack of all trades, the equivalent to the tactical marine in a Space Marine unit?
Yeah, it's more than a soldier. You know, it's not a guardsman. Mm-hmm. But it would be like your general everyday Astartes or your Rambo. You know, the comparison feels best to me would be like Noble Six. Mm-hmm. Can kind of do a little bit of everything. Is hyper lethal, but you know, isn't nearly as specialized as June or George or whatever. You know.
Yeah, and would you say Ghost is akin to how Elites were originally?
It's more of an Elites originally. You mean in the context of Halo or in Feet First edition?
In Halo.
Not really. It's more of a ninja. This is one of my play testers has done a lot of work with this class to make the powers feel different. So it's the idea of like a techno ninja, cyber ninja, mm-hmm. Somebody born and bred for gray work. Mm-hmm. You know, or I know Warhammer has the House of Assassins, but we were looking at some of the stuff out of Frank Herbert, like the background lore in Frank Herbert, like the Tleilaxu, where mm-hmm. they breed special people for assassination work. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of thinking of that.
Yeah, I could see that. I could also see somebody like, say, Simon Riley, aka Ghost, in the original Modern Warfare run.
I never played it.
Huh. That and his name is currently escaping me, but the one member of Noble Six who painted a skull on his helmet.
Oh. That's gonna drive me nuts. I know his name. And
yeah,
I'll get it wrong. It'll come to me. It'll come to me in the middle of the night, probably.
It probably will, because that's how this kind of thing always happens. But
yeah, I mean, with the Ghost,
it was Ernie.
Ironically, it was what?
Ernie, not Ernie. Emil.
Emil, there you go. I knew it was something like that. So the ghost player, ironically, the guy who kind of like guided the ghost out of my initial vague ideas, does not play rogues in D&D, but it is the rogue class, which is maybe a little bit strangely absent from Inheritors. There's no rogue class, and there's a lore reason for that in Inheritors. The ring was shattered, but we did get it in Defeat first. So, I mean, if you're a stealthy player, stealth and skirmish are kind of weird when they go together, but this character is designed to like really enhance mobility and your ability to rapidly engage with multiple other characters. So it plays very differently. You're more focused on playing solo when you have a ghost, but you can fill that out with other stealthy units. So it makes for it's not fun to be on the receiving end of a ghost team, having been there a couple times.
Yeah. I'd say Livewire, since we brought up Mass Effect, that would be not far removed from some of the tech types
Yeah, it's
in
very tech type.
or
So despite I know I said I play the Breacher, but the Livewire is actually the character that I've stuck with the longest. It's kind of a combination of like the Ranger with long range stuff going on and Beast Companions by way of having drones that act like your beasts. But it's very hacky, very techy the way that the Mass Effect. Oh man, I can't even remember what they're called. But yes, engineers.
Yeah.
There it is.
And of course, I can always bring up the engineer in 2 Fort, which with the stuff that they can set up.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be the turrets, whether it be dispensers or teleporters.
Yeah. Yep. No, that's a good comparison. It's an interesting little class because it doesn't play as aggressively as the others, but it's not a pushover.
Yeah.
It just plays differently. I don't know if you've ever read the novel Join, which is about people becoming hive minds technologically. It's a kind of near future sci-fi novel, but that was what I was thinking when I was dealing with this. Is the deeper that they go into this Livewire path. If you think of your Eldari have their pathways or whatever,
Aspects.
the deeper that they go into this, there you go, thank you. The deeper they go into their aspect study, this Livewire, the fragmentedness becomes in the way that the Joins do in that novel.
Yeah. And now when it comes to Pathfinders, especially since they have the railgun, it sounds like they're very much the dedicated sniper.
Very much sniper recon, yeah.
Which, I could bring up the sniper in 2 Fort. I could for some of the sniper rifle builds that I've seen people do in Mass Effect. And
yep.
When it comes to the tactician, on the other hand, what sort of parallels in other media does that one have?
It's more about team control and area of effect than your standard tactical skirmish character. When you're dealing with war games, a lot of times you're dealing with combat mechanics. This one takes kind of a step back, and it's much more about rallying the team, supporting the team. So I've said a couple times that like positioning is really important because you want to get parallel streams of fire drawn on one target to drop shields and incapacitate them quickly. So with this particular unit, it excels in battlefield control. And it makes for a solo player who's like going up against a campaign. There are other flashier Spectre classes, but the tactician can keep a team together alive a lot longer because of the battlefield control capacity that it has.
Yeah. In that regard, I guess I could make a comparison between it and Boss, the clone troop you played in Republic Commando.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
That, which incidentally was the game that parts of Halo 5 were trying to replicate, but it couldn't quite do it while still having the same setup as previous Halo games.
All right, that's interesting. I have not played that game since I was like 12.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to revisit it now. I own it. I'm gonna have to revisit it now.
But
Let's see if you're right about
an
that.
emphasis on the teamwork aspect, on as the tagline that was used for parts of Halo 5's reveal, your team is your weapon. Because the squad around you and their kit is just as important to your survival as what you bring.
Yeah, well, that's one more promise that they broke.
Yeah. And it sounds as well that the Valkyrie is meant to be the medic support.
Yeah, that's the easiest comparison. They're Valkyries because they come in after somebody's been downed usually, but yeah, the idea is high mobility. So like not having your medic pinned under fire, but just floating above the battlefield basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also kind of like the live wire. They've got the with drones, but kind of like the tactician, they've got some battlefield control. So more of a battle cleric, but very much a cleric in what it does for the team. Which again, not flashy, but makes or breaks whether or not you succeed sometimes, you know.
Oh, yeah, I can certainly get that. Now, with that in mind, given everything that you're going to be doing for this, what are you shooting for as far as a release window? Not a date per se, but a ballpark of sorts.
So the book is done.
Mm-hmm.
It's sitting, like the paper copy is sitting right here. I've been leafing through it as well. The book is done.
Mm-hmm.
What needs to be done is some final line edits. The very close reader might notice some question, or my editorial mark is TK because no word in the English language starts with TK.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very easy for me to Control F find it on my way through. And there are some like graphical issues. You know, I have to experiment with the printer a little bit because you may notice like the reds on the physical print, the reds come up kind of washed out.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to work on that. But the book, the lion's share of the book is done. It just needs final edits. And then I want to do a little bit more playtesting with our guys just to finish pinning it down.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure that, you know, what's in here is what we want to be, because this is the definitive edition. You know, we want to make sure that it's right and that it's clear for a new player in particular to pick up. I had people that reached out to me after the first edition, you know, in the months that followed. I published a revised first edition that had better layout, more stuff in it. It was essentially the same book, but bigger, with a little bit more clear explanations, because there's kids that play and they were struggling to learn the rules because it was so technical. So I want to make sure that the illustrations, the photography, the technical language is very clear so that somebody can pick up and play.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking in terms of release window, like I could line edit this and have it completely done by the 1st of October, but I don't want to rush it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking the end of November is probably more realistic. So getting it out by the mid to end of November gives me plenty of time to work through the physical copy a couple times, talk to the printer about this red washout issue, you know, then give us some more chances to play test and just make sure that the hatches are battened.
Oh yeah, I could most definitely see that. With all that said, I do want to sincerely thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come all the way to my monastery and enjoy the madness that happens here. And
no, I really appreciate getting to talk about the book with somebody.
And anytime you see fit to return, the door is always open. As I often say around here, drinking is not mandatory, but it is encouraged.
All right, thank you again. I really do appreciate it.
Yep. And of course, a sincere thanks goes out to everyone who took the time out of their schedule to come onto the show and enjoy the madness. And there'll be plenty more where that came from, as there always is here, on the open bar of the internet. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
Contigo. 遅い上洛が上少年関税を忘年関税を年々上新規年々不利し関税を多物用物異用物演武暴走上洛が上少年関税を忘年関税を年々上新規年々不利し関税を多物用物異用物演武暴走上洛が上少年関税を忘年関税を年々重新規年々不利し関税をラーメン物理用物異用物演武暴走上洛が上少年関税